Before Ronald McDonald ever flipped a burger, there was another mascot. A chubby kid, checkered overalls, a slicked-back pompadour. He stood outside 1,000 restaurants, from California to Ohio, from the Great Lakes to the Gulf Coast. The restaurant behind him invented the double-decker burger. It hired the co-creator of Spider-Man to write its marketing. And it paid working-class wages that built real retirement wealth. In the restaurant industry in the 1950s, when nobody else in the country was doing anything like it, there were 4 things this chain figured out that the rest of the industry spent decades catching up to, and one decision that made sure they got no credit for any of them. And it quietly guaranteed that everything they built would slowly eat itself alive. This is the story of Bob's Big Boy, a burger counter that became a national empire. 4 innovations, 1 catastrophic mistake. Let's go back to where it began. It starts in 1936. A man, $300, and a car he'd run out of reasons to keep. The first thing Big Boy did better than anyone, and the one that started everything else, was the product itself. Bob Wian was 21 years old when he sold his 1932 DeSoto Roadster. $300 was everything he got for it, and he spent every cent on a 10-stool hamburger counter in Glendale, California. Named it Bob's Pantry. It was nothing. A counter, a grill, a few stools that wobbled if you leaned wrong. For a year, it was just another short-order diner. Quiet some nights, unremarkable every night. Then, in February 1937, a local musician walked in, tired from a late rehearsal. He sat at the counter and asked Bob to make him something he'd never had before. Bob looked down at a standard hamburger bun and did something nobody had ever tried. He sliced it into 3 horizontal sections. He set the bottom bun down, added a beef patty, laid a middle bun on top, added a second patty, stacked the crown bun over it all, a thick stripe of special sauce, crisp shredded lettuce, a cold, firm slice of tomato. It was tall. It looked enormous. It felt enormous in your hand. And here's the part Bob figured out before anyone else did. It wasn't that much more expensive to make. The double deck looked twice the burger, but the extra cost to the operator was almost nothing. He'd found a way to make customers feel like they were getting more, while keeping food costs practically identical. Bob had stumbled onto the most powerful illusion in fast food history. For a 10-stool counter pulling in maybe $40 or $50 on a good night, that changed everything. A product that felt premium, a margin that stayed healthy, and customers who kept coming back because nothing else felt quite like it. Now he needed a name for it. That same year, a regular at the counter was a round 6-year-old named Richard Woodruff. Richard swept the floors in trade for free food. He was always there, always cheerful, always chubby-cheeked. One afternoon, Bob looked at this kid, big smile, slicked back hair, and said, "Hello, big boy." The name attached to the burger the same week it attached to the kid. Around the same time, a Warner Brothers animation artist happened to be eating at the counter. He pulled out a napkin and sketched Richard's likeness right there at the stool, traded the drawing for his lunch. That napkin became the foundation of one of the most recognized mascots in American history. By 1955, a designer named Manfred Bernhard had turned it into the fiberglass statues standing in parking lots from coast to coast, red and white checkered overalls. Burger held high. 2 things came out of that counter in 1937, the double-deck burger and the icon. Neither one was planned. Both of them changed everything. Here's what most people get wrong about Big Boy. They think it was a restaurant. It wasn't. Not really. The second thing Big Boy did better than anyone had nothing to do with food. It had to do with what people drive. By 1949, Bob Wian had money, real money. And he was about to spend it on something that most restaurant owners in America had never even thought about. He hired a Los Angeles architect named Wayne McAllister to design a flagship location on Riverside Drive in Burbank, California. The Googie aesthetic, futuristic roof lines, sweeping curves, space-age optimism, was already emerging in post-war Southern California. Bob Wian didn't invent it. He was the first person in the restaurant business to understand what it could do for a brand. What McAllister built on Riverside Drive wasn't a diner, it was a trap. The roof swooped out at a dramatic angle, the windows curved and stretched, and standing 70 feet in the air was a neon blade sign, pink and white lettering, burning bright enough to be read from a quarter-mile away. Your brain processed all of it before your foot touched the brake. That wasn't an accident. That was the entire point. In 1949, there were roughly 45 million registered vehicles in the United States. A decade later, there would be 74 million. Bob Wian was building for the America that was coming, not the America that existed. Most restaurants in 1949 were built to hold people who had already decided to eat. Bob built a building designed to change the mind of someone who hadn't decided yet. You had about 3 seconds to catch a driver's attention. 70 feet of pink and white neon gave you 4 seconds. The Burbank location handled drive-in customers and seated diners at the same time. Pull up and get a tray hooked to your window. Or come inside. White Formica tables, padded vinyl booths, a waitress who brought the food to you and refilled your coffee without being asked. In 1965, the Beatles ate at that Burbank location during their American tour. That's right, John, Paul, George, and Ringo, in a big boy booth. The original Burbank building is still in operation today, continuously since 1949. It was designated a California Historic Landmark, not a museum, not a monument, a restaurant, still serving burgers, because someone had the sense to build it right. The architecture didn't just stop cars, it outlasted the company that built it. A great building brings people in. That part's simple. What's harder, and what nobody in the restaurant industry had solved, is what happens once they're inside and you need someone to serve them. Bob Wian had figured that out too. And it's the part of this story that almost nobody talks about. The third thing Big Boy did better than anyone is the one most people have never heard about. Walk into a Bob's Big Boy kitchen in 1955, count the cooks. 3. Those 3 men put 300 Big Boy burgers out every single hour. No computers, no conveyor belts, no automation of any kind. Just a workflow so tightly built, it ran like an assembly line. The kitchen was a machine. That's impressive. But that's not the part worth remembering. Think about what a restaurant job meant in 1955. You took it because you needed the money, not because you planned to stay. The owner expected you to leave. Even you expected to leave. The whole arrangement was built on the assumption that nobody stuck around in a place like this. Bob Wian looked at that arrangement and decided it was stupid. He diverted 20% of the company's total profits into an employee pension fund every year. The workers contributed nothing, not a dime. 20% off the top, every year. Servers at Bob's Big Boy retired with $600,000. Dishwashers retired with $170,000 from a dish station in the 1960s. Around that time, you could buy a solid house in most American cities for $20,000. That dishwasher could have bought 8 of them. That's not a restaurant job. That's a career. It's the same promise that used to come with a factory floor or a union card. The idea that if you showed up every day and did the work right, the work would eventually take care of you in return. Bob Wian was making that promise over a flat-top grill. And if you were exceptional, if you were the kind of manager who ran a tight kitchen and built a loyal room, he'd go even further. His best performers could own their own location. The first employee-owned Big Boy opened in Phoenix in 1955. The word spread. In an industry where most workers had 1 foot already out the door, Bob's had people holding out for a spot on the staff. 3 cooks, 300 burgers an hour, $600,000 retirements. Nobody else in the restaurant business was doing any of this, not even close. 3 things, each one ahead of its time. And then Big Boy did something that had nothing to do with kitchens or buildings or pension funds. In 1956, they got into the publishing business, and they hired the co-creator of Spider-Man to run it. The fourth thing Big Boy did better than anyone, and the one that should have made them untouchable for a generation, had nothing to do with the restaurant at all. July 1956, Big Boy launched a comic book, not a coupon pamphlet, not a coloring page on the back of a kid's menu. A real, full-color, story-driven comic book, printed professionally, given away free to every child who walked through the door. They called it The Adventures of the Big Boy. The early issues were written by Stan Lee. Yes, that one. Co-creator of Spider-Man, the X-Men, the Hulk, Thor, Iron Man, the Avengers. Before any of that existed, before Marvel came to be, Stan Lee was writing a promotional comic for a burger chain in Glendale, California. The artwork came from Benny Washam, a veteran Warner Brothers animator who'd spent years drawing Bugs Bunny. The production was packaged by Saul Brodsky, who would go on to become one of the most important production editors in Marvel's history. This was not a throwaway side project. These were legitimate industry professionals producing legitimate children's media, and it ran for decades. The Adventures of the Big Boy became one of the longest-running continuous promotional comic series ever published in the United States. Now think about what that machine did. A family sits down at Big Boy on a Saturday. The kid gets a comic. He reads it in the booth. He reads it again in the car. He reads it to his little brother at home. His friend wants to borrow it. His friend's dad drives to Big Boy the following weekend. McDonald's didn't introduce the Happy Meal until 1979. Big Boy had Stan Lee writing their kid marketing in 1956, 23 years ahead. On a napkin, in a booth. 4 things. A product built on the most powerful illusion in fast food. A building designed to catch you before you knew you'd stopped. A pension that turned restaurant workers into homeowners. And a Stan Lee comic that wired brand loyalty into an entire generation of children. Each one genuinely better than anything the competition had managed. By 1979, Big Boy had over 1,000 locations across the United States. And then, Bob Wian made one decision. Just one. And it guaranteed that every single thing they'd built, the mascot, the menu, the pension, the comic, the legacy, would be taken apart from the inside out. Here's how Ray Kroc built McDonald's. Control. Total. Absolute. He specified the fry oil temperature to within 2 degrees, the bun dimensions to the millimeter, the number of sesame seeds per square inch, every location, every market, one name, one menu, one burger. Bob Wian went the other direction entirely. To protect the Big Boy trademark nationally, he started licensing the name to regional operators. Fast, cheap, sometimes for practically nothing. Dave Frisch got 4 states, Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana, and a section of Tennessee. He paid $1 per year. $1 per year for 4 states. And Frisch didn't just use the Big Boy name. He put his own name first. So now you had Frisch's Big Boy, Shoney's Big Boy, Eaton Park Big Boy, Azar's Big Boy, Elias Brothers Big Boy, Mark's Big Boy. The list goes on. A customer driving from California to Ohio didn't recognize the same restaurant twice. And here's what made that fatal. A kid who grew up on Frisch's Big Boy didn't think of himself as a Big Boy customer. He was a Frisch's customer. The mascot was decoration. The parent brand was invisible. When Frisch's eventually walked away, that customer didn't go looking for another Big Boy. He just went somewhere else. And it got worse. The franchisees started changing the burger. Frisch's swapped the signature special sauce for tartar sauce. Eaton Park added a strawberry pie, then eventually renamed the double-decker the Super Burger and erased the Big Boy connection entirely. Shoney's created a sandwich called the Slim Jim. And Mark's Big Boy in Wisconsin was openly selling Kentucky Fried Chicken inside their Big Boy dining rooms. Kentucky Fried Chicken, inside a Big Boy. Bob Wian had spent 20 years building one of the most recognized mascots in the country. and he'd allowed it to mean something completely different in every single state. In 1966, Wian's side venture, a shrimp fishing operation he'd started specifically to supply the chain, lost $3 million in a single season. His board had seen enough. They forced a sale. Marriott Corporation acquired the full Big Boy enterprise in 1967, $7 million, for a 1,000-restaurant national empire. That's roughly $55 million in today's money, for what should have been worth 10 times that. Marriott inherited something they couldn't fix. The regional operators were wealthy, powerful, bigger, in some cases, than the parent company itself. They'd outgrown the arrangement. They didn't need the Mascot anymore. They just needed a clean exit. Shoney's gave them the blueprint. By 1984, Shoney's controlled nearly 400 locations. They sued Marriott to dissolve their franchise agreement. Then they paid $13 million, cash, to cut ties and drop the Big Boy name forever. $13 million. To walk away from a brand they'd outgrown. Eaton Park left. Elby's left. Each one departed with its customer base, its real estate, and its regional loyalty. And Big Boy's name wasn't on any of it. Marriott sold the trademark in 1987 to Elias Brothers, a Michigan franchisee who became the new parent company. They tried to consolidate what remained, but they couldn't stabilize the debt. In the year 2000, Elias Brothers filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. In 2001, the United States trademark for Big Boy was legally divided. Frisch's was granted co-ownership of its own territory, 2 separate companies, same mascot, no unified brand, no shared menu, no shared future. Today, roughly 54 Big Boy locations operate under the main brand across the entire country. 4 original Bob's Big Boy restaurants survive, all in California. Big Boy didn't fail because the food got bad. It didn't fail because the competition outworked them. Bob Wian invented the double-deck burger. He paid his workers like they mattered. He turned a napkin sketch into a national icon. And he hired Stan Lee to build loyalty one comic book at a time. He did everything right, except one thing. He gave away the name. He let the franchisees change the recipe. He handed over the one asset you can never get back once it's gone. A consistent reason for customers to choose you. The original Burbank location is still standing. Late at night, after the traffic thins out, that 70-foot neon sign still hums to life, pink and white against the California sky. It's been glowing since 1949. A monument to everything Bob's Big Boy built. And a quiet reminder of what happens when you build something great and trust everyone else to take care of it.